The introduction. In the small, unassuming town of Maplewood, the tranquility of autumn had begun to descend, casting a blanket of orange and gold over the rustling leaves. It was on the crisp morning of October 12, 2020, that the peaceful silence was stirred by the sound of sirens slicing through the air. A prelude to chaos that would unravel a web of secrets held tightly in the arms of comfort. The town, often characterized by its friendly neighborhoods, cozy cafes, and the warmly lit library on Main Street, was ill-prepared for the events about to transpire. Residents went about their morning routines, unaware that soon the echo of tragedy would reverberate through their lives. The local news team stood poised, cameras ready, as whispers began to swell among the townsfolk. At the edge of Maplewood, nestled between sprawling fields and dense woods, lay the only school in the district, the somber facade of Maplewood High, an ordinary brick building with a faded sign out front. It harbored laughter and learning during the day, but on this chilling morning, its halls echoed with apprehension and murmurs of disbelief. In the center of the unfolding nightmare was 23-year-old Claire Reddington, a beloved English teacher whose absence from the classroom spoke louder than words. What was once a close-knit community of friends and families now found itself grappling with a void, one that hinted at darker undercurrents hidden just beneath the surface of their idyllic lives. The victim. Claire Reddington was more than just a teacher to her students. She was a guiding light, an inspiration wrapped in a friendly smile. With tousled brown hair often tied back hastily, and a collection of vintage cardigans that added a touch of flair, she embodied the spirit of youth and passion for literature. On any given day, one could find Claire leading spirited discussions about the great poets, or helping students find themselves in the pages of classic novels. But behind her enthusiastic demeanor lay a tumultuous past that only a select few knew. Growing up in a nearby town, Claire had experienced her share of heartache. The early loss of her father to a tragic accident left scars that molded her compassionate nature, but also fostered an unsettling restlessness deep within. She sought solace in teaching, pouring herself into the lives of her students as if they were a mirror reflecting the dreams she once held for herself. As the minutes turned into hours on that ominous morning, the community began to piece together who Claire was outside the walls of her classroom. Colleagues described her as determined and bright, while friends recalled late-night conversations wrapped in laughter and heartfelt revelations about life, love, and aspirations. Yet, beneath the surface, whispers began to circulate, rumors about a recent breakup, the strain of working long hours, and an encounter with an unknown man that left several questions unanswered. The more the townsfolk delved into Claire's life, the more they were faced with a jarring reality. Perhaps the idyllic image they had of their quiet community was merely a facade, concealing layers of complexity and tension that had gone unnoticed. Until now. The crime scene. The call came in just after 9 a.m., a frantic voice breaking through the quiet moments of a sleepy Monday. "There's been an incident at Maplewood High," the dispatcher relayed. The urgency in his tone sent local law enforcement into immediate action. Officers arrived swiftly, their vehicles lining the outskirts of the school grounds as they moved to secure the area. Inside, the auditorium, once filled with laughter and music, now stood ominously silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy usually radiating from. The strong scent of cleaning products mingled with a pervasive mustiness, remnants of an ongoing rehearsal for the upcoming fall play. The stage, often a platform for creativity and expression, would soon be a sight of tragedy. Officers pushed through the heavy red curtains, their boots echoing against the polished wooden floor. In the dim lighting, they discovered Claire sprawled unnaturally across the stage, her bright clothes striking against the muted backdrop. Shock rippled through the responding officers. She did not belong here, in a state of such stillness. Detective Maria Torres arrived shortly thereafter, her years in the force having taught her to remain composed in even the most chaotic situations. The signs of struggle were apparent of returned chairs and scattered props, painted a grim picture. As she approached the lifeless form of Claire, an unsettling knot formed in her stomach, and a wave of grief washed over her like ice water. "Secure the scene," she ordered softly, then knelt next to Claire, scanning her surroundings for anything that felt out of place. This might have been a stage, but today it bore witness to horror. In the back of her mind, Maria felt the weight of a chilling realization. The once close community of Maplewood was on the brink of unraveling, and she had to find the truth before it slipped through their fingers. The early investigation. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, its rays found their way through the dusty windows of Maplewood High, illuminating the unfolding chaos. Detective Torres and her team set to work, methodically interviewing the witnesses who had arrived at the scene. Each statement added another layer to the complex narrative that was quickly forming around Claire Reddington's death. First on the list was Eric Mulligan, the school's music director and a colleague of Claire's. He stood by nervously, a wild look in his eyes. "I saw her yesterday," he recalled, his voice trembling. "She was excited about the play. We went over some last-minute changes. I can't believe she's gone." As he spoke, tears brimmed in his eyes, but Maria noted the slight twitch in his hands, a sign of anxiety that piqued. Next up was Sarah Lee, Claire's best friend since childhood. "We were supposed to go out for coffee this evening. She said she had some news," Sarah explained, swallowing hard. "But she seemed different, little stressed maybe, like something was weighing on her mind." Here, a flicker of worry crossed Maria's mind. What burden had Claire been carrying? And was it connected to her untimely death? While the detectives gathered testimonies, forensic teams meticulously examined the auditorium stage, looking for anything that might hint at foul play. They dusted for fingerprints and collected samples, hopeful that evidence hidden in the shadows would reveal the unseen narrative of what had transpired. One officer flagged a large whiteboard at the side of the stage, adorned with hastily written notes and rehearsal schedules. Among the clutter lay an eerie message: "Trust no one." It sent a shiver down Maria's spine. This was more than just a tragic accident. Each clue, every observation, hinted at dark strings intertwining within the town, an unraveling fabric that could reveal the truth behind Claire's tragic demise. The dead ends. As the days passed, the echoes of Claire's laughter were replaced with a heavy silence that enveloped Maplewood. The once vibrant halls of the high school felt eerie, the weight of grief hanging in the air. Detective Torres immersed herself in the case, the clock ticking relentlessly as each day brought more questions and fewer answers. Initial leads quickly began to dissolve into ambiguity. Interviews conducted with Claire's students yielded little information of substance. While they admired her, most seemed unaware of the struggles lurking beneath her supportive exterior. The mystery deepened as several townspeople mentioned sightings of a strange man lingering at the edges of the school parking lot in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. Yet, despite the sporadic descriptions, an image of him remained elusive. Maria turned her attention to Claire's personal life. Days spent combing through phone records and social media accounts unmasked a tangled web of relationships, fleeting messages from friends, private conversations with students, and a barrage of texts from an unknown number that stopped just before her death. But what the red flags hinted at, they could not decipher. Even Claire's closest confidants couldn't shed light on the distress signals. But Claire was always so guarded about her personal life. It's like she was dealing with her pain alone. That night, Maria returned to the station, sifting through file upon file, her head heavy with the weight of uncertainty. She knew they were treading water, but time was running out. Desperation began to rear its head within the department. Truths lay tantalizingly out of their reach, bound by the intricate threads of secrecy that held Maplewood tightly wrapped. The deeper she delved into the investigation, the more she felt they were spiraling into a labyrinth without exits, each dead end only serving to thicken the plot, leaving behind a chilling sense of dread. A break in the case. Just when hope began to wane, a flicker of light illuminated the corner of the investigation. Detective Torres sat hunched over her desk, darkness outside creeping into the precinct as evening approached. The relentless buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead hummed like a warning as an officer entered with a tattered envelope, its edges worn, showing signs of wear. It was the last thing Maria expected, but as her eyes scanned the return address, her pulse quickened. Inside was a tip-off from an anonymous Sorcione that hinted at a confrontation Claire had with a man named Greg Hall, a former student who had recently returned to town. According to the note, a witness claimed that they had seen the two arguing outside the school a few days before Claire's death. The mention of Greg's name triggered a rush of memories for Maria. He had a reputation for being unpredictable, with brushes with the law that stirred concern among the community. Determined, Maria had gathered her team for a debriefing. "We've been given a lead," she announced, her voice steadier this time. "We need to find this Greg Hall. If he was in town recently, we need to know why he was at the school and what was going on between him and Claire." With renewed vigor, the detectives scoured through records as they pieced together Greg's whereabouts. When they finally located him, he appeared less composed than she expected, an anxious edge in his demeanor revealing cracks in his bravado. "Yeah, we had words," Greg admitted, refusing to meet her gaze. "But it was nothing. Claire didn't take me seriously." His words were dismissive, but Maria could sense something deeper rumbling beneath the surface, a secret ready to be pried open. As she pressed further, the manager of the local diner causally dropped a few more details about Greg Howe. He was seen acting erratically after their argument and had been behaving unusually ever since. It was a small breadcrumb, but one she could use to trace the dark disarray leading to Claire's untimely death. Maria left the diner feeling a surge of adrenaline They had a new direction that might finally lead to the catalysts of this tragedy. The suspect. With Greg Hall in her sights, Detective Torres felt the tension in the air thicken as she prepared for another round of questioning. They set a time and location for an interview at the precinct, a starkly lit conference room that amplified the gravity of the situation. The sound of Greg's footsteps echoed against the linoleum floor as he entered, a tinge of apprehension clouding his expression. Maria studied him intently, taking in the disheveled black hoodie and unkempt hair. The already frayed edges of his sanity appeared to be unraveling further, an unsettling reminder of the turmoil within. "Thank you for coming in, Greg," she began, her voice steady yet firm. "We need to discuss Claire." His reaction was immediate, a flicker of something. Perhaps fear flitted across his features. "I told you I didn't do anything," he asserted defensively, their eyes locking momentarily. "Let's talk about your argument," Maria said, leaning forward, a mix of curiosity and authority. "What was going on between you two?" Greg hesitated, his eyes darting away. "It was just a misunderstanding. She told me I had to stop coming around, told me she didn't want me bothering her." He muttered, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I was just trying to get her back. I didn't hurt her." The desperation in his voice rang false to Maria's ears. Something about his tone suggested a deeper undercurrent frustration, mingled with desperation. As the questioning intensified, she began to pick apart his story like frayed fabric. "Does that mean you were at the school the morning she died?" Maria pressed, noting how Greg's jaw clenched even tighter. I might have been around, but I didn't see her that day," he stammered, grasping at threads of truth and Leisha's alibi skirting dangerously close to the edge of fabrication. With each answer, suspicions blossomed like storm clouds, thickening the atmosphere. In the pit of her stomach, Maria sensed he was hiding more, that the menacing proclivity that had gotten him into trouble before was still lurking beneath the surface. As the hour stretched on, it was clear. Greg Hall was a potential suspect, a volatile element intertwined in the events leading up to Claire's death. Maria would have to tread carefully, but with this new focus, the tidal wave of possibilities at her disposal threatened to carry her into the depths of dark secrets buried within the town. The trial. Months passed. Yet the shadows of Claire Reddington's murder still hung over Maplewood as the trial of Greg Hall commenced, drawing the town together in an unshakable cloud of tension. The courtroom was packed with townsfolk, their faces a mixture of curiosity and dread, echoing the somber reality that had gripped their lives since that fateful day. Detective Torres sat amongst the throng, her eyes focused intently on the proceedings. The air was thick with anticipation as Greg entered the room, a far cry from the desperate figure she had interrogated months earlier. He appeared composed, perhaps too composed, wearing a dark suit as if to assert his innocence by outward appearances alone. The prosecution focused on establishing a timeline. Witnesses described the confrontation Greg had with Claire, their fervent accounts seeming to echo through the centuries-old courtroom. It painted a distressing picture and argument escalating into fury, leading to Claire's tragic end. But the defense was quick to counter, spinning a narrative of doubt. They portrayed Greg as a victim of circumstance, someone whose past had tainted perceptions unfairly. There is no hard evidence linking my client to this crime, his attorney argued, A reassuring smile plastered across his face. What we have are mere whispers and shadows of conjecture. Maria watched as the testimonies contradicted one another, an intricate dance of half-truths that wove a narrative fog, obscuring the path to clarity. One by one, character witnesses were summoned, some speaking fondly of Greg while others confessed to concerns about his mental state prior to the events that unfolded. On the stand, Greg maintained his innocence, his brow dripping with sweat. "I didn't mean to upset her. I just wanted to talk," he repeated blindly during cross-examinations, his earlier confidence waning with every probing question. As the final arguments loomed, Maria couldn't shake the sense of unease gripping her. The community yearned for justice for Claire. Yet, as the truth felt more elusive than ever, the realization dawned on her. The intricacies of human emotion, violence and betrayal could never be distilled to simple conclusion. In the quiet moments as the jury deliberated, Maria wrestled with the idea that the real lessons of the case extended beyond guilt or innocence. For the residents of Maplewood, the truth was likely fronting something darker than any singular act of violence, settling reality of lives, interwoven, marked by grief, loss, and the haunting truth that a familiar face could disguise sinister intentions. The aftermath. The verdict came down suddenly, like a thunderclap that echoed through the heart of the town. As the jury filed into the courtroom, silence gripped the attendees, a palpable tension settling over the gathered crowd. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the air as the foreman stood, face tight with the weight of responsibility, and delivered the one-word verdict: not guilty. Detective Maria Torres felt the air leave her lungs in a rush, the unexpected outcome crushing her resolve. Gasps of disbelief mingled with angry whispers as Greg Hall absorbed the news, an inscrutable expression flickering across his face. The aftermath of the trial was swift and chaotic. Emotions ran wild, tearing at the fragile fabric of the community that had soared with hopes for justice. In the following weeks, Maplewood struggled to recover. Claire's absence was a wound that never fully healed, the pain permeating the halls of the high school and spilling into the corners of every cafe and store. Students who once flocked to her classroom now wandered aimlessly, the joy that had characterized their interactions darkened by loss. The whispers grew louder. The sense of security that had cradled the town for years now bore the weight of distrust and suspicion. The notion that darkness could fester beneath a friendly veneer. Couples had trouble finding common ground. Parents vigilantly monitored their children, fearful of what unsavory figures might lurk nearby. Meanwhile, Greg seemed to slip away back into obscurity, shrouded in the shadow of his past. Whether the acquittal would weigh heavily on his conscience or free him to reclaim his life was unclear. The question burned within Maria's mind. Was he really innocent, or was he simply a master at evading accountability? Claire's family organized a memorial service, a glimmering light of grace amid the sorrow darkening the town's spirit. Attendees came not only to honor Claire's memory, but to remember the possibilities that once bloomed within her teaching, guiding and nurturing generations of students. The event was bittersweet, culminating in heartfelt testimonies of resilience, and the promise that Claire's spirit would inspire ongoing efforts for transparency and vigilance within the local school community. As dusk settled upon Maplewood, Maria stood at the edge of the high school grounds, the whispers of the town weaving into a rich tapestry of fatigue and hope echoed around her. Though the trial had ended, the search for truth continued deep within her soul a resolution to honor Claire's memory by advocating for the stories hidden within the shadows, determined that no voice would remain silent. To fight for justice. Reflection. In the dim light of her office, Detective Maria Torres reflected on the echoes of the past year. Sounds of laughter, the cries of despair, the quiet whispers that grew into a cacophony. The weight of it all settled on her shoulders as she stared at the stack of case files that still bore Claire's name. A haunting reminder of the life that had been so brutally cut short. Each file was a testament to the relentless pursuit of truth, an exercise in piecing together fragmented lives, as if they were shards of glass, sometimes shimmering, often sharp. Maria couldn't shake the feeling that justice had evaded her grasp, not just for Claire, but for the community at large. The town of Maplewood was forever changed. It now stood as a monument to emotional scars that ran deeper than anyone cared to admit. But as the weeks wore on, she found solace in the moments of hope that surfaced amidst the mourning. With the establishment of support groups aimed at fostering open dialogue about mental health and protective measures in schools, a softer light began to permeate the darkness. The resilience of the community was a reminder that while the past could not be rewritten, the future held countless possibilities for healing and connection. Maria took a deep breath, vowing to carry Claire's memory forward, to honor her legacy by dedicating herself to ensuring that every voice, no matter how small, would receive the attention it deserved. Though the burden of sadness remained, the flicker of hope ignited her spirit, a resolute promise that she would never stop searching for answers.